Now, I thought this was really good stuff to include in this presentation, looking at how might employees react to an appraisal. A lot of times as a supervisor, as a manager, you know your employees at a working level. If it's the first time you've ever praised somebody's performance or given them feedback on anything, sometimes we don't know what to expect, and sometimes, we might not be experts in giving performance appraisals ourselves. So, sometimes we try and fall back and say, well, what's the right way to do things? We've been talking about some of those right ways already, but some of the research that we have learned in the HR field and what it shows us about how employees view their discussion or their sit-down meeting about their performance when they're having an appraisal is most employees tend to view appraisal processes as fair when they didn't feel threatened. So in other words, their comments weren't judged, they weren't threatened in any way, they weren't judged, right? Having the chance to present their views and influence the course of the interview. So in other words, they didn't feel that they were being threatened or judged, but they did have a chance to talk during the interview, and they felt like their boss was really listening to them. So the person, like your boss, who's listening to your side of the story is the employee, right? You really feel like, hey, I'm being listened to, right? I might not like the fact that my boss is telling me that I'm not making the mark, but I really feel like this person is listening to me, and maybe there is a way that we can come to some kind of a conclusion on how we can deal with the issue, the problem. And the supervisor was genuinely trying to be helpful and constructive when they conducted the interview. So in other words, the employer, the supervisor, was really trying to help the employee to understand not just the company's perspective, but they were trying to say, I understand your perspective. I understand why some of these obstacles and challenges may have precluded you from achieving what you had to achieve. So maybe we can develop a plan to work forward, and I'd like you to have some input into that plan and how we can move forward and fix some of the problems, right? So again, the employee has a chance to influence the course of the interview, and their potential solutions to the problem will be heard and implemented. And you know what? The supervisor is trying to be helpful and listen to those ideas and give an employee an opportunity to be part of the solution as opposed to the employer imposing a solution. So you might want to keep that in mind when you get into your supervisory role. Remember that this is how employees tend to feel about the performance interview or the performance appraisal process when they view it as fair. So anyway, might be some good stuff for you to remember. Now, how can we ensure that the performance appraisal discussion leads to improved performance? Well, first of all, we need to make sure that we don't let unacceptable performance go on. We need to make sure that we tell people when we notice performance isn't so great, that things aren't being done to the best, to the standard of the company, and explain what those minimum expectations are, and sit down with the employee and see if there's a way that we can get it up to that expectation level. Make sure that the expectations that you set with the employee are reasonable, and you're not asking them to do something that they really can't do, given the level of knowledge, the level of skill they have, and the ability level that they have. Explain the role of warnings in the process of establishing just cause. So in other words, make sure that they know that, again, if their performance is not, say, at a level that it needs to be. So say, for example, you've sat with an employee already, their performance isn't where it needs to be, and then you have to have another follow-up meeting because the performance still isn't where it needed to be. You might want to explain what your disciplinary process is, and that you will give fair warning to let them know they're on performance counseling or being disciplined for substandard performance. And again, you want to make sure that you take prompt corrective measures to help the employer work with the employee to correct any performance that's not up to standard. And we'll discuss the next three here to ensure that we lead to improving people's performance in the next video.